When we talk of democracy, we mean true representation, and the parliament is the place. And therefore, the people must be informed. A program that brings to you expert clarifications and teachings of parliamentary concepts and procedures. Welcome to this program.
Thank you very much.
On Parliamentary Guide, we'll teach, we explain, we clarify parliamentary concepts and terms.
Hello and welcome to the program Parliamentary Guide. It's a program that keeps you informed, educated and abreast with parliamentary concepts, principles and procedures. I am Ejiroghene. Thanks for joining us. This episode of Parliamentary Guide will provide insight into the concept of legislative oversight. You certainly would want to know what oversight by lawmakers is all about and perhaps its role in promoting good governance in the country. In a bit, we shall introduce our parliamentary guide. Do stay tuned to the program as it promises to be revealing. Our focus is legislative oversight, and we have as our parliamentary guide ranking member of the House and Chairman House Committee on Rules and Business, Representative Francis Ejiroghene Waive. He represents Ughelli North, Ughelli South, and Udu Federal Constituency in the House of Representatives. Honorable Waive, it's good to have you on the program.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, what is oversight in parliamentary parlance, and what do Nigerians stand to gain from the oversight functions of lawmakers?
Well, thank you very much. The word oversight is taken from the word oversee. That's O-V-E-R-S-E-E. That's to oversee an event or an establishment or an occurrence. Now, in the legislature, one of the primary objective or duties of lawmakers is not just to enact laws, but also to see to it that those laws are being implemented. And one of the major laws the legislature enacts every year is the Appropriation Act, popularly called the budget. So having made the budget and signed into law by Mr. President, the legislature has the duty to go and see that the ministries, departments, and agencies of government are implementing the budget as signed by Mr. President, as passed by the National Assembly to the letter. So that process of going to the ministries, departments, and agencies of government to see whether the budget is being implemented to the letter is what is referred to as oversight, and is a serious assignment of Parliament. In the National Assembly, this goes on all through during the year. But usually, when the new budget is coming, or just when it has arrived, there's a need to cross-check in a very special way the total performance of the previous year. And the MDAs have a way of presenting their reports to reflect what they have done in the previous year, showing if there's any outstanding and if there are any challenges. But then the lawmakers must go on a fact-finding visit to look at what has happened and be able to use it to make decisions for the next Appropriation Act. But much more than that, where there has been infractions or anything that happened contrary to the Act, the MDAs are called to question and they are called to defend what has been observed. In the 2024 that we are in right now, the budget hasn't come, but the plenary will stop plenary just to go around and check the 2024 budget to see the performance of the ministries, departments, and agencies, such that by the time the budget arrives for 2025, we would, from the benefit of having gone round, be able to judge what we have seen with our eyes, the various committees are out, and then compare it with what the MDAs will present on paper, and that will enable decision-making for the 2025 budget. This is a usual practice, except that many times it is after the presentation that this outing is done. This time, the outing is done before presentation. And we're expecting that it will influence the provisions that will go to the various ministries. Any ministry, for instance, that utilize a small fraction of their allocations or provisions will definitely know that they have a shortfall coming ahead in the next budget. And then anyone that had any infractions should also know that there will be some price to pay when we begin to look at the next budget. So that is what oversight entails. And what Nigerians stand to benefit, or Nigeria as a country stands to benefit, is that we get value for money. Oversight prevents wastage, it prevents theft, it prevents any form of corruption that can occur during implementation of the budget. So it's a check, it's a method, a tool by which the legislature checks the activities of the executive. And in fact, even the judiciary, where they expend government funds. And that's what oversight entails.
All right, now we have good insight into the concept of legislative oversight. Please tell us, why was it necessary for the National Assembly to adjourn plenary for 2 weeks to carry out oversight functions?
No, throughout the year, oversight takes place by different committees over the MDAs that they have oversight over. For instance, the Ministry of Industry will be expecting the Committee on Commerce and the Committee on Industry from time to time during the year. But particularly when the budget is usually presented, there is that immediate check of previous performance, such that that is now used as a yardstick to judge the new provisions that are being requested for. But since the 2025 budget hasn't come, we thought we could save time by going to do that before the budget arrives. Otherwise, previously, after the budget arrives, we do it pari passu. That is, we are considering the new provisions, at the same time going to the ministries to check. So since the budget hasn't arrived, we are going out now to perform the function, the same function, so that by the time the budget arrives, we would have saved that time. So this time annually is usually the time for that check of budgetary performance, which is the oversight. But this year, since the budget hasn't arrived, it's coming before the budget. That's the difference. And you know that whenever the budget arrives, Mr. President lays it, and that's the first reading. Then the second reading is done the next day, and debate commences. 2 days are usually allocated to debate the budget, the content, to look at the general principles of the budget. 2 days. Thereafter, the House breaks into committees. They are no longer plenaries. And every committee then begins to act as a committee of the subcommittee of the Appropriation Committee. And during this period, when MDAs bring in their budget provisions, the committees also go out to do the checks. But what has happened now is such that by the time Mr. President lays the budget, the first reading, the debates now take place after the presentation in the second reading. What will now follow will be the presentation by the various MDAs. So going around again to the committees, we have saved that time by going ahead since the budget is delayed. So this decision is taken in the interest of nation building.
Okay. Over time, would you say legislative oversight has helped ministries, departments, and agencies of government to comply with the principles of the Appropriation Act, or we still have defaulting agencies?
Yeah, on a general scale, we'll say that oversight carried out over MDAs have been effective, except that there have been exceptions, like there are exceptions to every rule. Those infractions have been noted from time to time, and they are brought to the attention of the executive. The challenge is that the legislature has no powers to implement their findings and recommendations. The legislature might recommend, for instance, that a particular MDA should be sanctioned because of what was observed at during oversight visits. The person to do this sanction is the executive. The worst the legislature can do is that the new provisions, the legislature can slash them. the legislature can decide not to approve them, except, of course, for personnel and serious emergency cases. But there have been cases where the capital provisions for some ministries, departments, and agencies were not approved, and they had to run a scatter to do the needful in terms of making sure they comply with the outgoing budget law, the Appropriation Act. And to that extent, when they have complied, there are new provisions, they are now allowed to assess such. Such has happened before in the past and continue to happen. The challenge is that the executive has the duty to carry out those sanctions, so it becomes difficult. But as our democracy begins to mature, the legislature will continue to devise means other than refusing to approve the provisions for the next year. We will continue to develop ways and means to sanction MDAs. One of the things I like happening in the 10th Assembly is the passage of the Audit Act, which is now being followed by the passage of the Audit Tribunal Act. So when such things are in place, Parliament can refer infractions to the Audit Tribunal and not to the executive to implement. When we get to that point, then we can begin to say El Dorado. But as it is right now, all infractions are referred back to the executive again, who in the first place are the guilty party. So getting it resolved becomes an issue. But we pride ourselves in the fact that the infractions are put on paper, and Nigerians can assess that and know that the oversights were done and the results were documented.
Okay, we really look forward to result-oriented oversight by lawmakers. You are watching the program Parliamentary Guide. We'll take a short break at this time. Do stay tuned.
Are you looking for a short channel to make your business, goods and services go viral? Look no further, as NTA Parliament is your short channel. Take advantage of our wider reach and advertise your products and services on NTA Parliament DSTV channel 370, GoTV channel 126, StarTimes channel 306, and Free TV channel 706. For more inquiries, contact the Marketing Department, NTA Parliament, NTA Headquarters Area 11 Garki Abuja, or call these numbers 080-383-40464 or 080-770-78055. NTA Parliament, strengthening Nigeria's democracy.
Thanks for staying with us. The program is still Parliamentary Guide on the NTA with Representative Francis Ejiroghene Waive. Honorable Waive, we would like to know, apart from ensuring compliance with the Appropriation Act regarding budgetary allocations, are there other forms of oversight carried out by lawmakers in line with the provisions of the Constitution?
Other than the Appropriation Act, there are other laws made by the Parliament that the lawmakers have a responsibility to carry out oversight to ensure that every law made by Parliament, assented to by Mr. President, is obeyed, carried out into the detail by the ministries, departments, and agencies. Take, for instance, the Federal Character Act. Whenever we go on routine oversight is different from the end-of-year financial oversight. Routine oversight is when a responsible committee go to visit the MDA that it oversights, that is responsible to that committee, to oversight that committee, to look at what is happening in that MDA. What the committee does when it gets there on a routine oversight is to check all the laws relating to that establishment. I already mentioned one, which is the federal character. So we look at the payroll to know whether the spread, both in management and rank and file, the staff, satisfies the federal character principle. We also look at, Parliament also looks at the Establishment Act for each of these establishments to see to it that the operations are in agreement with what the law establishing those MDAs have set out for. So where there are breaches, these are also highlighted and measures for corrections are required to be put in place. So it's not just financial. And we always emphasize to MDAs when we are coming that it is not that Parliament is an enemy. Parliament is coming to ensure that your attention is brought to what you ought to do, how you ought to do it, and where you have challenges that we can help. For instance, when we see the implementation of a particular act, the Establishment Act, we could, from seeing the organogram and the day-to-day running of the establishment, we could see a need to amend such Establishment Act, and we have done several of such. So it's not just the budget. We also look at the IGR. Many establishments of government also generate internal revenue other than the revenues that go directly into the federation account or the Consolidated Revenue Fund. Some agencies, people pay some fees here and there to collect forms, to register and all that. So we look at how such funds are documented such that there are no leakages, and then how they are expended, because it's a criminal offense to spend any government fund that has not been appropriated by the legislature, such that when the IGROs come in, the volume must be submitted to the National Assembly for approval of the proposed appropriation, the fraction that is permitted by law to be used by that MD. Otherwise, the remittances are also checked to ensure that such revenues are remitted to the federation account. So oversight is well beyond financial oversight. We even look at the safety, the well-being of the office lookout, the workplace environment, the workflow, the relationships, and all of that to make sure that the Nigerian people who work in such places are working in a safe environment. And we also even look at service delivery, whether the people who patronize such government facilities are getting the best of services, because we want that the Nigerian people actually benefit from services being rendered by government agencies. We've had situations in the past where we had logistics challenges. And sadly, in such situations, some MDAs had come to the rescue of the legislature, which many of us do not think is right, because the Nigerian people believe, and I think rightly too, that he who pays the piper decides the tune. So if I'm coming to oversight you and you provide my logistics, my transport, my hotel accommodation and all of that, then by the time I begin to say you are wrong, I begin to say that with tongue in check. So that's been one of the challenge. But to ask Nigerians for funding for the legislature is very challenging, because we are not used to knowing that the funding that comes to the parliament is not necessarily salaries. There are a lot of things involved. Many people don't know that there's a National Assembly Clinic, there's a National Assembly Service Commission, there's a Nigerian National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. Many people don't know there are several things that take up the budget of the National Assembly. So people who are unschooled will just divide the total budget by 469 honorable members and senators and say that's what you take home. But there are a number of things that are involved: consultants, aides, and cost of oversight is another of such.
Okay, and what impact would you say legislative oversight is having on governance in Nigeria, especially in the life of the 10th Assembly?
Yeah, you would agree with me that the impact of the oversight of legislature has resulted in many amendments to establishment acts, to even setting up of new establishments. They've also brought reforms into the way things are done in our country. You'll know that there is an electricity reform ongoing, and before that happened, the legislature had done a lot of oversight and concluded that the old is it ECN that became NEPA, that became PHCN, was too big, so to speak. The elephant in the room was too big, they needed to be cut down to size. And then there was also the need for private involvement to enhance efficiency. So you now find the Legislative Reform Act that came into being. You know, there are many of such interventions by Parliament that came as a result of oversight, so that Nigerians will now get better services. And this is an ongoing process. Lawmaking is an ongoing process. Oversight is an ongoing process. I was talking about the Reform Act, Power Reform Act as an example. We have moved from where we used to be. It's not yet El Dorado, but we are moving. And oversight is showing the way forward. The failures in the distribution end are being highlighted, and measures are being put in place. Today, the law now permits generation, transmission, and distribution to take place in small geographical areas. All these are results that came from oversight. And I can go on and on to mention other specific areas that has been impacted, helping Nigerians to enjoy governance, get the benefit of good governance. Our laws are okay. There's a need for continuous improvement, but oversight on the implementation of the laws will continue to give better things. Take, for example, the Electoral Act. In 2010, there were a lot of complaints, and then the Amendment Act of 2022 improved the election that followed that. And based on that, there are talks going on again, oversight going on. The Committee on Electoral Matters, for instance, is oversighting INEC and going around and reviewing the last election. And they are coming up again with amendments to the Electoral Act. So those are examples of some of the benefits of oversight that the legislature performs. And I think we need to encourage the legislature to continue to do this so that government business can run smoothly and so that Nigerians can enjoy better services from our people and that we can enjoy what has been popularly called good governance.
Now, considering the importance of oversight and its role in promoting accountability in public institutions, what reforms would you propose to strengthen legislative oversight in Nigeria, perhaps to be in conformity with best practices in long-standing democracies?
Yeah, there's definitely a need for some reforms to help the work of the legislature. You know, the law, or democracy as it were, government of the people, by the people, for the people, it's designed in such a way that there's checks and balances. The legislature makes the law, the executive implements the law, and then the judiciary interprets the law. But these checks and balances have different overlaps in different areas. For instance, you want to appoint a member of the bench, the presidency will do the present the recommendation to the legislature, where, for instance, in the first place, the judiciary had brought in recommendations, you know, and then when the judges are sworn in, they again sit over the matters that come from the legislature and the general public. So there are always overlaps. One of the overlaps that must take place is for the legislature to be able to bite. That overlap must take place. Where there are infractions, the legislature should be in a position to carry out sanctions on erring MDAs. That will help the work of oversight to be more effective. In some democracies around the world, when the legislature makes a decision, for instance, the Public Accounts Committee, our decision, it takes the position of the decision of a high court. The high court of law is equivalent. In Nigeria, it ought to become like that. So it's not just that the legislature has made a pronouncement and then you turn your back and say, to hell with them. And that's why we'll continue to urge for the establishment of the audit tribunal. And not just the audit tribunal, the Inspector General of Police must now have a department under his custody or his domain, where the legislature can, issue that warrant of arrest, and there is no need for the IG or any member of the executive to okay it before the erring MDA is brought to book. We must get to that point. That's what happens in most democracies. In the United States, for instance, if you are going to appear before Congress, you know that there's trouble, and you don't go there anyhow. There are many people who have appeared before Congress, and the decision of Congress is law, and they obey that. So that's where we need to get to.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairman, House Committee on Rules and Business, Francis Ejiroghene Waive, for being our parliamentary guide today. And that's where we leave it on this episode of the program. I am Itaire Ikpen. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.